Hello, this is Ellen Butler, and I write the Karina Cardinal Mystery Series. When you walk the halls of power, make sure your wits and stilettos are razor sharp. You are listening to the Dark and Stormy Book Club podcast.
Hello, and welcome to episode 228 of Dark and Stormy Book Club. Today we have our conversation on A Quiet Street. Enjoy.
I'm Ann Dart.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
If you enjoy our show, please consider contributing to the Dark and Stormy Patreon. By becoming a patron, you will help us create better and quality content. There are also benefits to becoming a patron, such as exclusive content and Dark and Stormy merchandise. Become a supporter at patreon.com/darkandstormybc. Check our website for the link. We appreciate any and all contributions. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to Dark and Stormy Book Club. I hope you have read the book that we assigned for everyone for August. It is On a Quiet Street by Seraphina Nova Glass. It was published by Graydon House on May 17th of this year.
Who wouldn't want to live in Brighton Hills? The exclusive community on an Oregon coast is the perfect mix of luxury and natural beauty. Stunning houses nestled between mighty Douglas firs and lush backyards roll down into a lakefront. It's the kind of place where neighbors look out for one another, sometimes a little too closely.
Cora thinks her husband Finn is cheating. She just needs to catch him in the act. That's where Paige comes in. Paige lost her son to a hit and run last year, and she's drowning in the kind of grief that makes people do reckless things, like spying on the locals, searching for proof that her son's death was no accident, and agreeing to Cora's plan to reveal what kind of man Finn really is. All the while, their reclusive new neighbor Georgia is acting more strangely every day. But what could such a lovely young mother possibly be hiding?
When you really start to look beyond the airy open floor plans and marble counters, Brighton Hills is filled with secrets, some big, some little, some deadly, and one by one they're about to be revealed. Okay, let's get into it, girls. I think the first thing we need to say before we get started is this book contains some triggers. There's quite a bit of domestic abuse in this book, and it's not the kind of thing that can be skipped over. It kind of is a big part of the story.
First of all, we are going to reveal spoilers. So if you don't want to know how the book turns out,
Stop here.
or if you don't mind,
Or if you want to listen to a little of it and then decide you want to read the book, that's fine too.
the book is centered on 3 different women in the neighborhood. So each of us is going to focus on one of the women.
And it's kind of neat the way Seraphina wrote it, because each woman in the book, it's told from her perspective.
Exactly. And that's an important part of the book. I will say this as a review. It was very slow getting into this book. About quarter of the way in, I would say.
It was a slow burn.
For about the
became
first
up to a full boil. So if you start reading and go, this isn't, keep going. You will not be sorry. I will go first, and I'm going to tell Paige's story. Paige has recently lost her son, and she is now separated from her husband. He runs a restaurant, and she did work with him in the restaurant before their son died, but she has been so incapacitated with grief that she has been unable to function.
I would like to add just one thing. her son died of a hit and run accident. So I think that's kind of important because she's not sure who did it.
Also, it's in a gated community,
Yes.
so she suspects every neighbor of
Yes.
possibly having.
It has to be someone in the neighborhood. She's gotten a little out of control. She spies on her neighbors. She will go so far as to break into a neighbor's house if she thinks there might be evidence there that will link that to the murder of her son. And she calls it a murder. It was not an accident, it was a murder. She is very angry, and she's eliminated everything out of her life, including her husband. She sort of pushed him aside, and he's gone on to live his life and run his restaurant. But he still comes over weekly, mows her lawn, takes the trash out. So he definitely cares for her in a deep way. Of the three characters, she's the bitch. And her neighbors know she can be very bitchy.
I wonder what her character was like before her son died.
I don't know. It does not go into that.
No, we really don't know.
Because that changes somebody.
Yes. Oh, definitely it would. Even the police have sort of backed off on her because she was calling them weekly. This neighbor, their car's parked wrong, and it's a blue car, and that's what hit her somewhere. There was some paint residue. So she knew it was a blue car.
Cora is a stay-at-home mom. She decided when she and her husband first married that that's what she was going to concentrate on, being a housewife and later a mom. And she gave up a career in journalism to do so. She is there to support her family. So what she does now, that her daughter is, I think, 17. She's a teenager.
Yes,
she's getting close to graduating from high school.
Because they were going to go visit colleges.
She's got more time on her hands, so she does a lot of charity work. She organizes fundraising events. She likes very much to keep her house in order.
She's what you would call a soccer mom.
And she likes to supply her neighbors with cookies and baked goods.
Yep.
Yeah. So she lives directly across the street from Georgia, one of the other women, and she's very curious about Georgia. And so she is a little on the nosy and pushy side.
Mm-hmm.
She also is kind of obsessive, especially about her husband, because she suspects him of cheating. She's got her curiosity finger in a lot of different pies, shall we say.
And next, we meet Georgia. She's the newest member of the neighborhood. She's almost like a recluse. Like the most her neighbors see of her is coming out onto her porch with her baby daughter. Because everybody else goes like very chatty and, like a neighborhood. And Georgia's not. Georgia actually doesn't really want to have a relationship with any of her neighbors. And her husband goes to work every day, on the weekdays. And so from the street, it looks like they just have a normal family life. And she is British, and she's a lot younger than her husband. And so they thought, well, maybe this is just a British trait. Maybe she's, standoffish. She is the topic of discussion that they're curious about. All right, so there's your three women. This is what I think. I think this book's theme, if it had a theme, would be secrets. And in the end, women supporting women.
From my character, Paige, she thinks of Cora and possibly Georgia as weaker than she is. Because she domineering. I mean, she goes to the police department every week. And
that's also somebody's obsessed with.
Right.
Finding out who
she's more
killed her
obsessed,
son.
but she doesn't understand why Georgia doesn't come out. And she doesn't understand why Cora is so bubbly and she's very annoyed in the beginning with Cora. Not
No, I didn't.
yes, she was.
No.
They're best friends.
They're best friends.
But
hang out.
they were best friends. But she didn't like her much.
No,
and
I never got that.
I never got
I
that.
will-
Interesting that you came to that conclusion, because I did not grab that at all.
I did. I thought she didn't like her that much. I mean,
This is my take on it. She's going through a trauma. So there is nothing bubbly about Paige at all.
oh no.
So
I don't think there ever
sometimes-
was a bubbly Paige.
And I don't know. Like I said, we don't know who Paige was before the tragedy. Because when we're getting introduced, she had a good relationship with her husband.
Yeah, they ran the restaurant together.
Yeah, and everybody kind of looked at them as a good couple. And as the story progresses, you learn that Paige's grief is ruling everything about her life. We know somebody who's lost a child, and it's all encompassing. You throw in a kink that there's a mystery to solve also for her.
But her grief is different from ours. She doesn't know who caused.
That's what I'm saying. There's a mystery to solve.
She's also impatient with people because she can't see past this trauma in her life. So Cora's
little piddly problems.
Yeah, they don't have an impact on her. It's just not comparable to her.
No,
And it's not.
No.
And you can understand that. But Cora
Everything.
and Grant,
Oh, yes.
they are very patient with her, and they don't give up on her. Grant comes over every week, and Cora goes over every couple of days or so, and they hang out in Paige's backyard, but they kind of allow her to be angry.
So I think some of what you think that she didn't like her was that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was, I'm going to push everybody away.
Yeah, that could be.
Because I think before the tragedy, her and Cora were thick as thieves. Mm-hmm. But now we'll get into Cora and her cheating, philandering husband.
Because Cora suspects Finn of cheating, and she thought that she caught him a few years back. But, oh man, he is really good at gaslighting her. And he turns it around on her big time, has her so self-doubting that she goes to a counselor, and she just cannot catch this dude. He's that good. That's the kind of space they're in at the beginning. And she goes over to Paige, and she's just hanging out, and she says, I think I've caught him again. I think he's cheating. She saw a note in his day planner that says,
Drinks with C.
Who's C? And Paige says, well, I might be able to help you out with that. You can kind of act like maybe a private detective.
Gave her something to focus on.
Yeah,
because she's been spying on all her neighbors, trying to find out who ran over her son. So she's got a skill set.
Now this is where the book goes a little off.
I know what you're going to say.
And I don't understand why she did what she did. She took it too far. Immediately. I mean, there was no...
She ends up sleeping with...
Well, they didn't sleep.
Yeah. I was trying to have some decorum.
They did the
here.
deed.
in a public bathroom.
Yeah.
Not a...
Yeah. I mean...
Well, this was
was
pre-COVID.
That part of the book, I just went...
Yeah,
I don't know any woman...
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, here's what I got.
The grief?
It was the grief, the anger, and I think it was never really explicitly said, but I think that Paige offered to be this detective to follow Finn because she already had suspicions that Finn was the person who killed her son. So she was not really
she alluded to that later on.
She wasn't necessarily helping Cora. She did want to help Cora, but she would do anything
but
to
if
find
you thought
out.
Somebody killed your
Would you have
son,
sex
would
with
you
him?
have sex with that person?
I think she was willing to do anything
to get a
catch
convention.
Well,
this
you know,
person.
I'm going to go back and try to remember how I felt as I read that without knowing anything else that was coming. First, I thought, well, maybe this is a desperation to feel something. Because I've heard that before from people who are going through grief. They just need to feel something. So sex with a stranger, or he's not a stranger, but sex with somebody like a taboo thing would
Your
fill
best
that
friend's
need.
husband?
Because
She wanted to prove he was cheating.
Not only did she offer to spy on him, she offered to be a decoy to see if he would make a pass at her. So that was already pre-set up. I thought it went too far too, but, you know, I'm thinking from somebody who
has morals.
No, well, I don't know if, like I said, I think part of it was the grief. I think Seraphina did an excellent job
Oh,
of
she did.
taking you through somebody who's going through that. Other than that, I don't think anything else was far-fetched as far as her desperation to figure out who killed her son.
Right. But Cora, on the other side, she had the relationship with her daughter. She was trying to keep that going, and a teenager wants nothing. But I'm saying Cora was not a figure who was confrontational.
Oh, not at all.
And her daughter was one of these that just leave me alone, let me go in my room. I don't want to associate.
Didn't she surprise everybody in the end?
Yes, she did.
She was acting like a typical teenager.
Exactly.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But until you go through that with your kid, read, my kid wouldn't talk to me. And you go, oh, my child will never do that.
Oh,
I think she was about 14. I didn't even have a civil conversation till she was married.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, Cora was confused about, Mia was her daughter's name.
Right.
She was confused about how quickly that seemed to happen. They had a pretty close relationship up until then.
Right, and then bango.
And then about a year ago, suddenly Mia became less...
Very reclusive.
Right around the time when
Caleb
died.
Who was Paige's son.
So she's thinking maybe she knew Caleb and that...
She was mourning for
Actually, she had broken up with a boyfriend, and she thought that the boyfriend, the grief was coming over this breakup with a boyfriend.
She didn't.
Yeah.
She didn't put two and two together with Caleb because he was a college student in his early 20s, and of course Mia's 17, still in high school. So
yeah.
So now let's get into
excuse me,
Miss Georgia.
There's an enigma right there.
Yeah, because another thing that I think Seraphina did a great job is when you drive down a street, you truly don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And you hear it all the time, like a serial killer lived next door to, oh, he was the nicest neighbor.
Right.
And so you really don't know what somebody's going through. And that's why you say don't judge, because you have no idea. And this was a great example of that. We find out when Georgia starts speaking herself in the book, the neighbors had already talked about her, but we hadn't heard her yet.
Georgia's husband, Lucas, has put out this story that she's an agoraphobic. So there's a supposed reason why Georgia doesn't speak to anyone.
So once we start hearing Georgia's voice, she didn't let you know that she was abused right away. Talked about her daughter, and it was a little bit of, oh, I have to be careful. So you think, oh, well, maybe he's just a control freak at first.
Well, she says things like, I can't believe that I used to be so outgoing. I had friends, and I can't believe this is my life now. I don't go out anywhere.
It sounds like it's her at the very beginning.
Yeah, because one of the very first scenes with Georgia is Cora trying to knock on the door to try to give her some cookies or something. Cora didn't want to give up on her.
Cora wanted her neighbors to be her friends.
Yes.
Period.
Because she was a stay-at-home mom it's gated communities. You've got a limited group there, and she wanted to be.
That's how she thought things should be.
Yep. There's another stay-at-home mom. She's younger, but so what?
I can, and she's got a cute baby, and I see her
bring
on the
her some
porch.
cookies and
Well, then you find out that her husband Lucas has cameras pretty much everywhere in the house. She has to be very careful of what she does. She can't make phone calls. She's not allowed to go anywhere. Her only reprieve is out on the porch. She would go out there, and she figured out that the camera, if she laid down on the porch swing, she could actually freeze the camera.
She had hidden a teeny tiny remote.
she found a remote, and she could freeze it for so long.
Yeah.
Up to an hour, I think.
About it. She figured an hour would make him think that she was just having an afternoon nap with the baby.
Right.
And at first she would just use that time to maybe search the house or search areas that she could go in, or she'd find little things and she'd want to look at them, but she couldn't do it because he was always looking.
That was one of the issues I had, because she would go and search things. He had cameras everywhere. He caught her doing all kinds of things. But how could she search this place just by freezing
I think
her?
she was freezing those cameras too, because
No.
it would just
No,
But
the only remote she had was the porch.
But she didn't. She would act in a certain way. Like I remember specifically, she talked about getting an envelope. One of the neighbors had received an envelope, and she's like, okay, how can he's going to see that this envelope came through the front door. How can I pick up that envelope and take it back out to the camera I froze to look at it? And this was, I thought, extremely clever on Seraphina's part, because she went step by step in how Georgia would figure out how she would be able to pick up that envelope. She put a plate down on top of it on the front desk, and then went, oh, I forgot my spoon, and came back out with the spoon and picked up the plate along with the envelope to take back out to the porch where she could actually read it. Mm-hmm. So she did pay attention to that.
And because he was a judge, he had a lot of connections to the police department, so she couldn't reach out for help.
Oh yeah, she's not right.
She's not from around here, and
she's depressed, postpartum.
There was probably a time in my life I would have read this book and thought, you stupid person, you should have just walked out the door.
Wow.
We know now that these men know how to manipulate these women.
That's the whole thing.
So now we'll go into how her and her husband met. She worked in a resort. I forget where
in
was
France.
It?
France, yeah.
But it was like a resorty type place.
She majored in like hotel management or something like that.
And he comes along. He's handsome. He's older than her, but and I think he was with his family, like not his wife, his mother and father, and
swept her off her feet.
Truly swept her off her feet. They get married almost immediately. And I remember an episode of Oprah one time that said, if a guy falls in love with you within a week, he has not your best interest at heart. He wanted somebody he could manipulate, and that's exactly what he did. He moved her away from her family. He
changed her name.
Because we find out that her name is actually
Nicola.
But he wanted no connection to her old life whatsoever.
And her parents had passed away too, so she really didn't have any family.
No, I think he targeted somebody like that. Somebody that did not
he was
have
looking
a way
for
out.
somebody he could take over their whole life, and he did.
Well, he also had the means and the opportunity. He's a judge. He's got money. He knows how to work the system. He destroyed her passport, took away her ID. Mm-hmm. Eventually, this was all kind of, I wouldn't say a slow process because they've only been married about a year, he did it in a way that she didn't really get it right away.
My heart broke for her when that letter you're talking about was about a bank account that she didn't know she had. That desperation, I think another way that Seraphina did such an amazing job of showing how desperate she was. When she goes to that pawn shop, and I know that's further down the book, oh my God.
When she was with the bank teller trying to get her money, she didn't have any ID, so they wouldn't give it to her.
Let her have it.
And the desperation. I mean, I don't know what else to call it.
She ends up stealing somebody's ID just to be able to have ID, to be able to get something. So I'm sure you're curious, if you have not read this book, what is the connection? How do these women end up all together? Cora and Paige are kind of watching from afar what's going on with Miss Georgia.
Well, Cora more so than Paige.
Yeah.
Cora
Paige kind of gets pulled in.
Yeah. Cora reports to Paige what's going on, and at first she's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
But then we kind of find out she does care, because she had
she was going to draw the line when it came to the fact that this guy was keeping her from everybody.
Yeah.
Paige was spying on everyone. And she, of course, spied on Lucas a little bit.
He was very controlling, but he was also extremely abusive, too. Physically abusive.
Oh, yes.
And find that as the book goes along.
Never hit her where it would show.
He would lock her in the basement and just was so horrible to her. Those were very hard for me to read.
Yes.
But I think that's it. Seraphina wanted you to feel uncomfortable. She wanted you to hate Lucas with your whole being.
Oh, especially when he was, Georgia, if you would just do what I tell you, we would have a great life. I supply everything for you. You have this wonderful house. What's wrong with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why would you want to leave? You can't keep a bird in a cage forever. They need to get out once in a while.
So let me ask you guys a question, because I kind of contemplated this while I was reading it. When Finn said, "Nah, I don't want anything to do with you," to Paige. She went to his office. Do you feel that Paige was like, "What do you mean you don't want anything from me?" Or do you think this was definitely, I'm trying to figure this out?
I think she didn't like the rejection.
Yes.
She has never been rejected in her life. Yeah. And all of a sudden, here's this man who she thinks killed her son, and he's rejecting her? How dare he?
That came as a surprise. I think she had her agenda, and she did not expect him not to go along with the agenda, but she also was like, oh my God, really? I'm being rejected?
I think that was the whole thing. But
the scene where Cora confronts the woman that he was sleeping with.
Yes.
Priceless.
Oh yeah, that was
a good one.
Yeah, that was where she unfortunately got gaslit into believing that it was all in her mind, and she needed therapy.
And let me ask you guys another question. Who secretly wanted Cora and Grant to end up together?
Oh, I did not. It's not secret about that.
Yeah, they deserved each other.
I know. They were the two characters in the book that I just thought. Cora played the piano, and she was a stay-at-home mom, so she didn't fix herself up or anything like that. Well, when she got real thick into this, thinking her husband was cheating, she was like, you know what? She went and had a full makeover. She went shopping. She
colored her hair.
Got extensions in her hair.
Well, that was after Paige broke into Finn's office and stole the laptop, but she wore a blonde wig.
And that's right.
He thought it was her.
I'm telling you, there's so much to this book.
I know. Yeah, he was saying, just tell me you did it. And she's going, I didn't.
I don't know what you're talking about. And so she finally got mad. She was pissed. And that's when she went and got her makeover.
Grant and Paige owned this restaurant, a little Italian restaurant, and they had a piano at the restaurant, and they used to have somebody come in and play. He sung. That's it.
And he was really good at singing, but
Okay.
but that wasn't what he did.
Yeah. But anyway, so she came into the restaurant one day, and it was kind of empty, so she just...
The restaurant had lost their sing-along piano player. And when Grant realizes that Cora can play the piano and she's a stay-at-home mom, help me out a couple of nights a week.
And she was really thrilled for that. She needed an outlet, and once she fixes herself up, I think she surprised her husband and she surprised Grant. And,
I think she surprised herself.
Yeah.
She definitely surprised her daughter.
Yes,
her daughter was
was
like, Mom, you look great.
Well, I think as a stay-at-home mom, and I was a stay-at-home mom for years, you kind of get lost in that identity. So when you finally step out of that identity and realize, hey, I'm a person too.
I think she is the character that Seraphina really developed as time went on. I don't think Paige changed that much. I don't think Georgia changed.
Did a little bit.
Well, Georgia changed because we learned more about her. I don't think she necessarily
But she got braver. I mean,
desperation.
She was desperate.
Oh, I know she was, because she went to the bank, jumped in the cab, and...
she was doing things, but she even acknowledged
adrenaline crazy.
She even acknowledged things in the narrative that I can't believe I'm doing this. I would never have done this before. I've become a monster. She said that about herself at one point, because she was just so desperate that she stole from people. She stole from Cora. She said, I'm stealing from the nicest woman on the planet.
Yeah.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. And then we have a whole new dimension to the story, because Cora steps in to help Georgia because Cora watched Avery while she's doing all this stuff. Yep. So when she comes back, it finally...
Her husband is there.
No, well, yeah. Her
there.
husband's there, but how Cora got involved was after Georgia went to the pawn shop. And she got arrested because she tried to steal a ring.
And she had stolen the older woman's ID. That's how her husband wouldn't find out who she was. Now, I thought that was a little far-fetched. I think they would have taken it a step further.
Well, I don't know, because it was very quick. The pawn shop employees, they knew that some desperation that was going on. And there was no way that this woman was going to get away. She was pushing a baby in a baby carriage, and she tries to steal a ring and run out of the pawn shop and get across the parking lot with a baby carriage and a baby bag. Nobody really wanted, even the police didn't want to arrest her.
Charges.
So I don't think they really tried all that hard. The cops were like, if you can just find somebody to bail you out to take care of the baby, we'll get you out of here. It was like a Friday. They were like, can you give me somebody's name? And that's when she said, call Cora.
Yeah.
Because that's the only number she knew.
That was the only, and the only friend she had, really.
Yeah.
She had this other woman's ID that she stole, so that's the only ID the cops had.
Yeah.
It's not like she said, my name is whatever.
Yeah.
So they had no way of knowing who she was.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they did try, and they probably would have, if they really needed to look further into it.
It was a pin.
It would take time to find these things out.
Cops don't really want to get involved in the domestics, especially if it's just a woman who's kind of gone off the rails,
And got a baby with her.
Yeah. And because they were going to actually call social services, and that's kind of why that was the desperation. I need Cora.
She said, call Cora. Yeah. So that's how Cora gets involved, and this is one of the best character developments, I think, in the book, is that Cora figures out that this is Georgia because the cop says she's got a baby named Avery. Yeah. And Cora's like, light bulb.
I'll be right there.
So I'll be right there. And Georgia has no choice but to kind of tell her
Confess.
story now.
Yeah.
And she says, you can't take me back home. You can't, he's going to kill me. So that's when Cora really shows how much strength she
Because
has.
she took her home and she hid her.
And that's when she gets Paige involved and has her come over because they end up having to move her to Paige's
Yes, because
pool
her
house.
husband got a search warrant.
We have to back up a little bit.
Yeah, we're getting
Paige
jumping.
finally got the information she needed when she stole Finn's laptop.
Oh, okay.
She got everything she thought she needed.
You mean Paige?
Paige got everything she thought she needed to catch Finn, not only at cheating, but to point to him at being the hit-and-run
murderer.
driver. While Georgia / Nicola was hiding in the mother-in-law pod, Paige came over and told Cora, which I really felt sorry for Cora at this point, because she's being Miss Rescuer. And here comes Paige with, yes, I have photos, I have emails, your husband is definitely cheating on you. Oh, and guess what? I think he murdered my son. Cora kind of loses it a little bit, which I can't blame her.
Yeah,
She's just
yeah.
like, I can't take anything else today.
Yeah.
This is where it all really comes together and
Mhm.
everything comes out. And so Paige turns Finn into the police, and that's where the search warrant came. Paige calls up and says, you have to get
Her
Georgia
out
out
of there
now.
Well,
Yeah.
I knew there was a search warrant.
So then, poor Georgia, she's being hidden, and all this information is coming out.
Mia, after Cora
It's a
has
makeover.
her makeover, she kind of opens up a little bit more to her mom. And then she hears an argument between Cora and Finn. And she comes out and she says, I can't believe he was so mean to you. And it kind of opens up the mother-daughter communication. And they sit down, they have ice cream. And Mia opens up about she's had a big crush on Caleb, Paige's son. And so a year ago when he died, she was very upset. She didn't come out with everything,
No.
but enough that she explained a little bit more towards what happened with Caleb.
Right. Well, he was peddling drugs
Yes.
as part of his thing. But
Yeah.
who did he sell the drugs to?
Oh, practically everybody.
Yeah, and in a scene earlier in the book, Georgia's at the park, and a guy comes along. You don't know who he is, and this is before this book even starts.
Obviously, she knows a little bit. So, some time, and not a lot of time, we're talking like maybe a day or so. Paige reveals that she had put a recording device in Lucas's briefcase because she was spying on everybody. Paige says we need to get that back because we need to prove that he's abusive to you, Georgia. This was a little...
Yeah, this
This
was
was
Yeah,
a
this
little
was
pushing
a
the
stretching.
limits.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Paige breaks into Lucas's house while he's sleeping and retrieves this.
And I like what she said, how she said that, oh, if I get caught, they're used to me doing this.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm
'Cause
like,
they-
really?
That was what I said in the beginning. I'm sorry, if somebody broke into my house, I don't care. I would have them arrested. It's not like, oh, the police are used to me doing this. It's against the law.
Yeah, but this guy, well, that's true. But she had a lot of leeway because everybody knew. The neighbors, they may have been
They
pissed
didn't
off, but
repeat
they
it.
were,
Didn't
they
report it. to
They
the
felt
police.
sorry for her.
Yeah.
And they let a lot go. And she said she was very quick with the mace. Again, going back to how, okay, this is a little beyond the realm of possibility. The author, she kind of addressed that somewhat in the narrative. She would say, Paige is thinking to herself, yeah, when I broke into Jerry's house, Jerry's heavy and there really wasn't much chance of him catching me because he's not
Yes,
crawling
I can
through a
outrun
window
him.
after I can outrun him.
Yeah.
I can crawl through a window. here this guy is big, fit, angry.
So we've given you a lot of information. Who do you think did it?
Exactly.
Give spoilers, and we did give spoilers, but we didn't tell you the final conclusion.
Final conclusion. That is up to you. Read the book. You won't be sorry.
Mhm.
It's a great ending. All three women, it gets woven together in a climax that you will not
see coming. So we've given you, I think, most, if not all of the pieces of this puzzle.
There's those little pesky corner pieces, though, that need to be found to finish it up.
These women have definitely bonded. Nicola / Georgia is in Paige's house.
Cora's in her own house.
Finn was in jail.
That's where
That's
we're
where
leaving
we're leaving
you.
it.
Finn's in jail.
Yeah, Finn's in jail. And you guys are going to have to figure it out from here. We're evil that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I hope you enjoyed this different way of us talking about a book, and we hope that you do read this book, because I think you will not be disappointed. We all three loved it. And we have our next book assignment, and you're going to have quite a bit of time to read it. And this book is called Death and the Conjurer. It's by Tom Mead. It came out in this year, 2022. It should be available at your library. I found it on Hoopla, which is what my library uses to take out books, and I listen to it as an audiobook. So you can listen to it as an audiobook, or you can read the paper book. If you cannot locate a copy of this book, please get a hold of Caprico Books, Liz Decker, and she will be more than happy to order you a copy.
And that's capricobooks.com.
And we would welcome anyone's input.
Definitely.
And they need to email
Dark and Stormy Book Club @gmail.com.
Well, tune in next time when we will have our regular episode.
And remember,
life would be boring without a little mystery.
Bye.